Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 The Howl. Third time I've done a video like this looking at the additions and subtractions of teams in the Central Division that the Coyotes find themselves in, and this could be the year where the Coyotes finally break out of the last place team, bottom two team. There is opportunity here for the Coyotes to make some noise. I would say the Coyotes are the most improved team on this board, looking at, maybe Chicago's right next to them. But obviously, just because you're more improved doesn't mean you match up well with the other teams. I think Dallas and the Avalanche could swap 1 and 2. The only reason why they are placed in order, by the way, the only reason why I put the Avalanche finishing first in the division is because last year they were decimated with injuries and they still found themselves at the top of the division, albeit only by 1 point, maybe 2 points. And Dallas, I feel adding Duchesne makes them a really good contender for number one. But if the Avalanche stay healthy, I don't see how other teams like Dallas, the only team that could probably pass them, could pass them. The Avalanche, they added Johansson from Nashville, Jonathan Drouin, Ross Colton, and Miles Wood. They lose Alex Newhook. I think the Avalanche, they got to win now. They're in win now mode. They can't keep waiting on a guy like Newhook. So I think Montreal acquiring Newhook was a really good move by the Canadians. They lose Nieto, JT Compher to their long rival, the Detroit Red Wings. Rodriguez, good solid depth guy. Eller and Helm, I believe both of them retired. Could be wrong on that. But the Avalanche, the only problem with them this upcoming season is they don't have Landeskog for the whole season. They missed him last season as well. But you add some depth like Johansson and Drouin, who they're not looked to be the number 1 and 2 guys. They're more depth. Johansson's a still pretty good player. Just he is overpaid. That's why Nashville moved on from him. But you add those guys to a forward group of McKinnon, Rantanen, Nichushkin, Likinen. That's a good forward core. But I think the Avalanche have the best defense core in the league. Makar, Byram, Gerard, Taves. I mean, you can't go wrong there. And Josh Manson if he's healthy this year as well. So that's a defense core that you're never going to beat, which is why I think they would finish first in the division again. I don't really like Dallas's defense, even though they got a huge name as well. And then goalies, the Avalanche have Gorgiev and Francois. Not too bad of a tandem there. Dallas, you add guys like Duchesne, Sam Steele, Craig Smith. Again, Duchesne, who isn't even like their fifth best forward on this team, I would say. They still got guys like Robertson, Hintz, Johnston, Pavelski, Sagan, Ben, Marchment, and then you add Duchesne to that. That's pretty good. They lose Domi. I totally forgot Domi was on Dallas for the playoffs and after the trade deadline. Kivi Ranta hasn't really made some noise since the bubble playoffs. And Colin Miller, the defense for Dallas, it stops at Heiskanen and Lindell. Yes, Heiskanen's an elite defenseman in the league. But after those two guys, I'm not really sure how you put Dallas's defense above the Avalanche at all. Goaltenders, Ottinger and Wedgwood. We're familiar with Wedgwood. Ottinger could be one of the best goalies in this division next to Saros in Nashville. Minnesota, they're cap strapped. They couldn't really do much. They just add Pat Maroon as a substitute for losing Ryan Reeves. They also lose Dumba to the Coyotes, Sundqvist, Nyquist, Klingberg, Yost, Steele. A lot of really depth guys that weren't moving the needle for Minnesota, and then their young guys coming up are going to replace those players. So guys like Duhaime, Boldy, Rossi, they'll pick up the slack for this depth. And then they still got guys like Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Eriksson Ek, Hartman. They do lose Greenway at the trade deadline. I had him on the board, but I forgot he was a trade deadline loss, not an off-season loss. These are all off-season moves. I liked Greenway, but was underperforming for Minnesota offensively, so they move on from him. Then we go to St. Louis, who lost so much at the trade deadline. O'Reilly, Tarasenko, Achari, Barbashev, list could go on, and they didn't replace them with anybody. Kevin Hayes, I don't like that move. And then Sundqvist is like a fourth line guy. Like for the Coyotes, he would be fourth line. So it's not like Sundqvist is going to be second or third line for the Blues. They are adding Kevin Hayes to a forward core. Bushnevich, Braden Shen, Kyrou Thomas, Neighbors as their young forward core. They still have Brendan Saad and Kapanen. I don't know. I feel like they're going to rely too much on Kyrou and Thomas, and I'm not sold yet whether Kyrou and Thomas could take this team back into the playoffs. I feel like this is a make or break year. I liked what they did at the deadline. St. Louis knew they weren't going to compete in the playoffs, so they sold. They got a bunch of first round draft picks. That was an excellent move, but I feel like they missed an opportunity in the offseason to just grab more talent, and now they're going to have to rely on their young guys a bit much. I don't know how much Braden Shen has in the tank left to carry this team as a number one centerman. Their defense, Falk, Krug, Leddy, a bunch of really old defensemen, and then Perunovic is the up-and-coming young defenseman. They still got Colton Parayko as well. And their goaltending, they lose Grice. They don't really replace him. They have a young goalie in Hofer and then Jordan Binnington. So a bit weak there. Like St. Louis is on the brink. I could see Winnipeg, Nashville hopping over St. Louis. But for me, I like their coach, Craig Berube. I didn't think they were going to bottom out last season. I like what they did at the trade line. But maybe it was just one of those off-season, it was one of those off regular seasons where they just didn't have it in them. They'll come back next year with more, pep in their step and show people that last year was just a fluke, and they get back to competing with Minnesota for third in the division. Nashville, they lose Duchesne and Johansson. They get O'Reilly in the offseason, who finished his season with Toronto. They get Luke Shen, Nyquist, Gurianov. The forward core for Nashville, other than Forsberg, I don't know who's scoring on this team. You're at O'Reilly and Nyquist are adding to a forward core of Sissons, Glass, Trennan, Tomasino. It's literally only Forsberg. I don't know how they're going to score this year. Their defense is pretty all right. You have Roman Josi still, Ryan McDonough, who's getting up there in age, Tyson Berry, and you're adding Luke Shen. So defense could be good. And then their goaltender, Saros, could stand on his head consistently. We'll see how far Nashville goes with Saros. Winnipeg, now I admit, the forward group for Winnipeg on paper is amazing. They still have Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers, Perfetti's a new young guy. And then you add Velarde, Iafallo, Kupari from the LA Kings and the Dubois trade. So that forward core is good. The reason why Winnipeg's so far down, and last year I had them finishing in the same position, just the morale of the group is in the dumps. I don't believe in their head coach, in Bonus. And there was a report recently, I think on the podcast, Elliot Friedman's podcast, where the core players of Winnipeg, they want to be in the know of the direction the organization is going. They feel like they're behind closed doors. They don't know what's going on. Are they going to rebuild and sell off Scheifele, Hellebuck, Connor, Ehlers? Are they going to re-sign guys like Scheifele and Hellebuck for long-term extensions? They don't know what's going on. Management doesn't really talk to them. No direction. It seems very disorganized for the organization. As opposed to the Coyotes, very transparent. They talk to their players all the time. The players know exactly what's going on. Even through this arena situation, when the vote went no, guys like Keller were like, hey, what's going on? They meet with Bill Armstrong and ownership. They get it all flat out, transparent with the player. They go and acquire good NHL players and say, hey, we're moving a step forward here. With or without the arena, we're going to put a good team on the ice. That's what you do as a good organization with your players. So for me, Winnipeg, I feel like if they get through the first 10 games of the season, first quarter of the season, and the morale is shot, I could see players just giving up and being like, get me out of Winnipeg. It's been the same thing for a couple years. Ever since, those conference final appearances or long playoff pushes, it's just a shadow of their former selves, and we'll see where they go from there. Goalies, obviously Hellebuck could rival Ottinger and Saros as the best goalie in this division. And then we go to Chicago. The best acquisition in the offseason is Connor Bedard. They add Taylor Hall, Corey Perry, Nick Foligno. They lose Taves to retirement, Stalag, and Caleb Jones. I'm sure they want to lose Seth Jones as well. You add Hall and Bedard, Perry, Foligno to a forward core of Tyler Johnson, and Thanasiu, Kirashev, Kachuk, but their defense and goaltending is abysmal, and which is why they're going to finish last in the division. Their goalies are Mrazek and Soderblom, who I have no faith in. Their defense is Seth Jones, Connor Murphy, and Zaitsev. So I don't know how Chicago's going to keep the puck out of their net. Sure, they could score. They're going to be fun to watch with Bedard and Taylor Hall. Maybe Tyler Johnson is healthy for a full season. But I just don't know how they don't finish last with that defense and goalie tandem. So for the Coyotes, the most improved team in the Central Division, there could be a chance they finish fourth behind Minnesota, Dallas, and the Avalanche. It just seems like the dam is ready to break for any of the Blues, the Predators, and the Jets. All three of those teams are primed to start rebuilding. If something goes wrong, these are prime candidates to start a rebuild. Basically what Chicago did 2 years ago and what the Coyotes did 3 years ago now. So I just feel like the Predators and the Blues, they didn't add much in the offseason, and they're kind of just going to try again and rely on young players and play them too many minutes, not surround them with really good veterans who could take this team far and have a lot of talent and gas in their tank still. And, you know, they could really bottom out here this upcoming season. And young teams like the Coyotes with no pressure could surpass them. Winnipeg, I can see it too. I can see Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers, and Perfetti with Velarde carrying this team. And off the backs of Hellebuck, they have a good defensive core as well. Morrissey, Dillon, DeMello, Schmidt, Pionk. Like, it's a good team on paper. Just the intangibles of the team, the morale, the dysfunctional organization. That's why I have them so low. But I can see Winnipeg. Honestly, they could probably finish third if those players I mentioned on paper, they're pretty balanced in every position. They just get out of their heads, play hockey, play to their talent. They may finish third. But we know hockey is just not all about talent. It's between your two ears and the amount of effort and competitiveness you put into it. So that's it for me. I'm sure all of you disagree, like always, with this type of video. Last year, I underestimated Dallas a lot, and I overestimated St. Louis, but no one knew St. Louis was going to bottom out last offseason. I thought they had really good center depth with O'Reilly, Shen. They had Tarasenko, Barbashev, and some young guys in Cairo and Thomas. For me, Cairo and Thomas are good second, third line players. I don't see them as first line. And now this upcoming season, they're probably going to be on the first line, second line, and be relied upon to do most of the scoring. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.